Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatta Desharane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Vishwasadi Gaura Bhaktavedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Vachalam Pakam Kare Deve Mutkipadam Hare Shri Ram. So welcome back to this Nectar of Devotion sessions. So I hope that you would have read chapter 8 yesterday. And do you have any questions in that? Okay, everything is clear. Or else you have not read. Anyways, this is only a list of offenses that should be avoided. So if you have not read, please go and read. So we'll be starting with chapter 9 today, which continues with the discussion of Angas of Devotional Service. Okay, so there is one question. Yes. Point 23. Yes. So this is chapter 8, 23rd. This is the second section, right? One should not introduce any opposing scripture. So it basically means that those scriptures which are opposed to pure devotional service, one should not propagate that, or one should not read that. That's what it means. See, okay, so if we see Vedic literatures, the ultimate goal is pure devotional service, is to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But at the same time, when Srila Vyasadeva compiled these literatures, he specifically divided them into the Shruti portion, which is the ritualistic part. I am speaking in a very general sense. There are different classifications. And at the same time, when he gave these Puranas, then he divided them into these 3 different modes. So there are 6 Puranas specifically meant for those in mode of ignorance, 6 specifically meant for mode in passion, and 6 specifically meant for mode in goodness. Okay. Now, even in those scriptures which are in mode of ignorance, or rather, scriptures are actually not in mode of ignorance, but the people to whom it pertains to, those people are in mode of ignorance. And there, those deities or demigods who pertain or who can elevate such people who are in mode of ignorance to a higher platform, they are glorified as supreme, or as those who can satisfy their desires. Okay. But people who are in tamoguna, they will not be able to understand that. Okay. For them, say for example, for the mode of ignorance, it's mentioned that one should worship Lord Shiva because he is the master of false ego. And people should worship Mother Parvati and other deities, similar Kala Bhairava and things like that. So there are different Puranas, Shiva Purana, Linga Purana, like this. Now, apparently, these scriptures will glorify Lord Shiva. These scriptures will glorify Mother Parvati and like that, claiming them to be supreme. Okay, so in this particular sense, this is an opposing scripture to the Vaishnava conclusion of Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is explained or which is proved through those scriptures which are in mode of goodness and Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in Shuddha Sattva. Okay, so these scriptures are opposed to the ideals of pure devotional service because other deities apart from Krishna or Vishnu is being glorified. Okay, so this is what it means when it says not to introduce any opposing scripture. But at the same time, if we see even in these Puranas, Shiva Purana and Linga Purana and other such Puranas, it is mentioned, the glories of Krishna are mentioned there as well, but it's not very apparent. It's not very straightforward or forthcoming. It's mentioned, but it's mentioned as a side, it's a side story that, okay, this also happened. But then the prominence is given to other deities like Lord Shiva. So, this is the reason why there are different opinions when one comes to own his personal study of Shastra. Some people say Shiva is supreme, some people say Brahma is supreme, he is the creator, and some people obviously say Vishnu is supreme like that. So there's contradiction. So people who are not in disciplic succession, by studying such kind of Puranas, they get into different conclusions. So these scriptures which enable one to come to such kind of conclusion are categorized as opposing scriptures. But holistically, we do understand that it pertains to different people in different modes, and it's meant to elevate. And the narrations which are given about the pastimes of Lord Vishnu or Krishna in even this Tamasic Puranas like Shiva Purana or Linga Purana, they are the things which actually elevate a person from Tamoguna to Rajoguna. So the glories of Lord Vishnu or Krishna is actually there in all the major 18 Puranas. But the prominence is not given to them in the Puranas which are in passion and in ignorance. So because of that, people might get bewildered. So they are these opposing scriptures. And now when we are studying this nectar of devotion, there are certain regulations and rules, different limbs of devotional service that one has to follow. But similar activities are also done for other deities. For example, in Puranas, again, quoting this Tamasic Purana or Rajasic Puranas, in those Puranas, there are specific set of rules, specific set of procedures, rituals which are mentioned to worship a particular deity. Now, those rituals would parallel or almost be similar to what is mentioned here. So one should not introduce, okay, because the rules and rituals are the same, therefore one can worship Lord Shiva also using these rituals. So it's the same thing. So these kind of contradictions should not come. So that's what it means when we say opposing scriptures. But the final conclusive understanding is all scriptures are meant for glorifying Krishna, but again, to pertain to different people in different modes, the scriptures are divided in that way. So those conclusions should not be derived from those scriptures. So that's why it is said, when one is in disciplic succession, he can understand the conclusion properly. He can understand the position of the different demigods with respect to Krishna. And that is proper understanding. So he can study Shiva Purana, Linga Purana in an appropriate way. But those who do not have this proper understanding, who are not in disciplic succession, they will not be able to understand. And specifically when one comes to devotional service, he might be on a neophyte level, right? So we discussed about these three adhikaris. There is this Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. So those who are Kanishta Adhikaris, if they have access to these scriptures, then they might introduce something because they do not have a complete understanding of the proper conclusion of scripture, although they have taken up devotional service. So they should refrain themselves from introducing anything new. They should be submissive to the spiritual master and to the disciplic succession and the knowledge which they gain from it. So they should not introduce anything new. So that's the point. Okay, anything else? Right, so we will start with chapter 9. So this is a very big chapter. Okay, there are 22 limbs are mentioned in this 9th chapter itself. So we will have to move a bit faster today. My plan is to complete this 9th chapter today, and then 10th and 11th we'll complete tomorrow. So we'll have a class tomorrow as well on Saturday. And the next week from 12 to 19 we'll be able to cover. Okay. So there are 22 limbs which are mentioned in this. So we'll go through one by one, and the plan would be similar as yesterday. These are things which, most of it, which we are already aware of, which we are practicing in our day-to-day life. So I'll just try to give some more elaboration based on Prabhupada's purports and different scriptures of how to understand a particular item so that there is no doubts that remain regarding execution of these limbs of devotional service. So most of it will be reading as yesterday, and will continue like that. So first one, that is 20th. If you remember, in the 7th chapter, we discussed till 18. That is not to disturb any other living entity. Puta Dunuvega Daita. And 8th chapter speaks specifically about Namaprad and other offenses. So these other offenses are mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas. Okay, and this is what you would have read. So there are totally 64 offenses. Okay, there are totally 64 offenses that one should avoid. So these 64 offenses come under just one category, one limb of devotional service. So one should avoid all these 64. So this you should have read. And then 20th is what we are starting from. So this is Tan Rindadi Asahishnuta, which means one should not tolerate blasphemy of the Lord or his devotees. So in this connection, 10th canto, Shukdev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, my dear king, if a person after hearing blasphemous propaganda against the Lord and his devotees does not go away from that place, he becomes bereft of the effect of all pious activities. In one of Lord Chaitanya's Sikshashtaka verses, it is stated, the devotee should be more tolerant than the tree and more submissive than the grass. He should offer all honor to others, but may not accept any honor for himself. In spite of Lord Chaitanya's being so humble and meek as a devotee, When he was informed about injuries inflicted on the body of Sri Nityananda, he immediately ran to the spot and wanted to kill the offenders, Jagai and Madhai. This behavior of Lord Chaitanya's is very significant. It shows that a Vaishnava may be tolerant and meek, foregoing everything for his personal honor. But when it is a question of the honor of Krishna or his devotee, he will not tolerate any insult. There are 3 ways of dealing with such insults. If someone is heard blaspheming by words, one should be so expert that he can defeat the opposing party by argument. If he is unable to defeat the opposing party, then the next step is that he should not stand there meekly, but should give up his life. The third process is followed if he is unable to execute the above mentioned 2 processes, and that is that one must leave the place and go away. Right? So blasphemy of the Lord and blasphemy of his devotee should never be tolerated. If we are being blasphemed, then we should tolerate that. Right? But a blasphemy of the Lord and devotee should not be tolerated. If a devotee does not follow any of the above mentioned 3 processes, he falls down from his position of devotion. Right. So this is a reference which you can go and read. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 15, text 261, where Srila Prabhupada writes about offenses to a devotee and what are all the consequences if one does not act according to these 3 injunctions, either defeating the opposing party, or give up one's life, or leave the place and go away. If he does not do any of these 3, then he falls down to the hell known as Maharaurava, accompanied by his forefathers. Like this, there are different details. So you can go and read the references from Madhya Leela, chapter 15, text 261. Right? Okay. Tilak and Tulsi beads. Atha Vaishnava Chinha Dhritihi. So Vaishnava Chinha, the signs which identify oneself as a Vaishnava, as a devotee, must be accepted. So one must wear tilak. There's not an instance where you should not wear tilak. That should be there. Tilak and Kanthimala should always be there. In Padma Puran, there's a statement describing how a Vaishnava should decorate his body with tilak and beads. Persons who put tulsi beads on the neck, who mark 12 places of their bodies as Vishnu temples, with Vishnu's symbolic representations, the 4 items held in the 4 hands of Lord Vishnu, conch, mace, disc and lotus, and who have Vishnu tilak on their foreheads, are to be understood as the devotees of Lord Vishnu in this world. Their presence makes the world purified, and anywhere they remain, they make that place as good as Vaikuntha. So continuing in the same understanding, it's 22, Namakshara Dritihi. So there are signs, or there's tilak that is put throughout the body, or emblems are being made, and the next limb is to make or write the names of the Lord in one's body. A similar statement is in the Skanda Purana, which says, persons who are decorated with tilak or gopi chandan, who mark their bodies all over with the holy names of the Lord, and on whose necks and breasts there are tulsi beads, are never approached by Yamadutas. So Srila Prabhupada writes, Yamadutas are the constables of King Yama, who punishes all sinful men. Vaishnavas are never called for by such constables. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the narration of Ajamila's deliverance, it is said Yamraj gave clear instructions to his assistants not to approach the Vaishnavas. So Vaishnavas are beyond the jurisdiction of Yamraj's activities. The Padma Purana also mentions that a person whose body is decorated with the pulp of sandalwood, with paintings of the holy name, is delivered from all sinful reactions, and after his death he goes directly to Krishna Loka to live in the association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is from chapter 6. Srila Prabhupada writes, the idea is that as soon as a person sees these marks on the body of the Vaishnava, he will immediately remember Krishna. Lord Chaitanya said that a Vaishnava is he who, when seen, reminds one of Krishna. Therefore, it is essential that a Vaishnava mark his body with tilak to remind others of Krishna. So we have experienced. As soon as a person sees, they ask, oh, you are from this Hare Rama Hare Krishna temple, is it? Like that. So it reminds them of the movement of the ISKCON or whatever they know. And they know that we are the devotees, or we are aspiring to be devotees of Krishna, like this. So therefore this tilak mark should never be given up. And even when book distribution was going on in America, then this conflict, we can say, or this issue came up that to distribute more books, we should wear karmi dress, right? In a coat, suit, in pants and shirt, you can go put a hat and then distribute books like this. So this issue was brought up to Srila Prabhupada. Some devotees were saying, no, we should identify ourselves as the devotees, and then we should push, and that way they'll get more benefit. And some are saying we can push more books if we become similar to them, if they can identify with us. They are karmi people, and if they can identify with us, we'll be able to distribute more books. So therefore, we should wear karmi dress and then do it. So Srila Prabhupada said that whichever way, if you think that by donning karmi dress you can distribute more books, but you can wear this suit, this coat, pant, everything is proper, but one must have tilak in his head, and one must have this kanthimala, and his head should be shaved. You can wear dress like a gentleman, but then you should have these three. These three should be there. So that is, one must identify himself as a devotee. That's the point. So although you can wear karmi dress, but still the tilak should always be there. Kanthimala should always be there. That should not be given up. And the main reason for that is, this is one reason, of course, and if our preaching anything can be done. But another thing is that when one takes initiation, one goes through the Diksha process, this tilak and kanthimala is, it's called Pancha Samskara. Diksha ceremony is called as Pancha Samskara. The first three of these samskaras belong to first initiation, as we say in ISKCON, and the last two belong to the second initiation. So there is Tapa, Pundra, and Nama. Tapa is your Kanthimala. Pundra is the Tilak, Urdhva Pundra, and Nama is the name that you get during initiation, or the chanting of the holy names, the Hare Krishna Mahamudra, that's the Nama. So these three is what we get during initiation. So once Diksha has been obtained, then these three should not be given up. These three should not be given up. In any circumstances, one should always have tilak in his head. He should be aware. Just like we are aware whether we have clothes in our body or not, similarly one should be aware whether he has tilak, whether he has kanthimala in his body or not. Because it's a vow which has been taken. This tapa, pundra and nama. So one should identify himself as a devotee of the Lord. One should show himself as a devotee of the Lord. So that's the proper way. Okay. Based on circumstances, preaching circumstances, if something has to be adjusted or modified, now that is very specific to a particular devotee, to his particular service, which should be consulted with the senior devotees or spiritual master like that. But general principle is that one must put the tilak and kanthimala, that should be there. So these are for the first three. And the next two is second initiation, where we get this Pancharatrika mantras for deity worship, and then one engages in deity worship. So this is called as Pancha Samskara. So this is the Pancharatrika system of getting initiated. So Diksha means these five, but within ISKCON, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Srila Prabhupada divided that into first three and the next two. Because not all devotees would be coming, or anyway, we'll not get into all these details. So some devotees may have the culture and they may be qualified to become Brahmanas. But some devotees, for them, name itself is enough. Actually, the holy name itself is enough. One need not go through this Diksha process at all. That itself is complete. But then there is a system of Pancha Samskara for purification for doing deity worship. And we will see when we get to this Anga of touching the deity, it will be specifically mentioned that one must be second initiated to go to the altar. So it's very clear. It's very clear that one must be second initiated to go to the altar. But then in ISKCON we see that even those who are donors, who are not even initiated, they are also allowed to do Abhisheka, to touch the deity and all. That is not allowed. That's not proper standard. But then that's what it is. Okay, so we'll move on. So there are again some references which we will not be able to discuss. This is from Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi Khanda, chapter 15, text 8. Okay, it's available in Veda base. If you have, you can go back and check. Or else, I can give it to you. You can come later and then take it from me. So there, this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's commentary on Tilak and Urdhva, Tilak and Kanthimala. So all those details are mentioned in that particular commentary. You can refer that. Right. Then, accepting flower garlands. Nirmalya Dhritihi. The next instruction is that one should put on flower garlands which are offered to the deity. In this connection, in 11th canto, Uddhava says to Krishna, "My dear Krishna, I have taken things which you have used and enjoyed, such as garlands of flowers, scented oils, garments, and ornaments, and I eat only the remnants of your foodstuff, because I am your menial servant. So therefore, I am sure that I shall not be attacked by the spell of material energy." The purport of this verse is that for any person who simply follows these rules and regulations of decorating the body with the marks of tilak of gopi chandan, of sandalwood pulp, and who puts on the garlands which were offered to Krishna, there is no question of being conquered by the spell of material energy. At the time of death, there is no question of such a person's being called by the constables of Yamaraj. If one does not accept all the Vaishnava principles but still takes the remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna or Krishna Prasad, he will gradually become qualified to rise to the platform of a Vaishnava. Right. So there's a separate anga for accepting, for honoring Prasadam. So we'll see that. And if you see, Uddhava is saying that he has enjoyed the things which were accepted by the Lord, like garland of flowers, scented oils, garments, and ornaments. And in Indian culture, it's still prominent that whenever new cloth is being bought or it's been sewn, then it's always offered to the deity, either to Krishna deity or whatever deity they are following. That culture is still there. So before offering anything to the Lord, nothing is accepted. Okay, so that culture is still being followed in India. Similarly, in Skanda Purana, Lord Brahma tells Narada, "My dear Narada, anyone who puts on his neck the flower garland, which was formerly used by Krishna, becomes relieved from all diseases and reactions to sinful activities. And gradually, he is liberated from the contamination of matter." Right? So one must accept the garland. So the mood is not that I have the garland, so therefore I am decorated very nicely. The mood is it's the prasada of the Lord, so therefore it should be accepted. Agre Tandavanam. So this is dancing. In the Dwarka Mahatma, the importance of dancing before the deity is stated by Lord Krishna as follows. A person who is in a jubilant spirit, who feels profound devotional ecstasy while dancing before me, and who manifests different features of bodily expression can burn away all the accumulated sinful reactions he has stocked up for many, many thousands of years. In the same book, there's a statement by Narada wherein he asserts, from the body of any person who claps and dances before the deity, showing manifestation of ecstasy, all the birds of sinful activities fly away upward. Just by clapping the hands, one can cause many birds to fly away. Similarly, birds of all sinful activities which are sitting on the body can be made to fly away simply by dancing and clapping before the deity of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada famously said that when you clap, the lines in your hand, they change. So whatever you're supposed to suffer or enjoy in your future, it all becomes changed. So even those you're supposed to enjoy, that also changes. So not only sinful activities. The reactions, basically the point is the reactions are mitigated. So some notes. Srila Prabhupada writes, unless you become blissful, you cannot dance. You cannot dance artificially. When devotees dance, it is not artificial. They feel some transcendental bliss and therefore they dance. It is not that they're dancing dogs. No. The dancing is performed from the spiritual platform. And we do feel, when Kirtan is going on a crescendo, we do feel that impulse to dance. So therefore that bliss is there. Definitely it's there. So we are holding classes there and discussing on this book, having Kirtan, distribution of Prasadam. So it is very nice. There is no labor. Simply you come, you hear nice songs, you dance, you take nice food, you hear nice philosophy, and think over, and you may go home. We don't ask anybody that you press your nose like this, you make your head down like this, make exercise like this. We don't ask anybody, but people automatically like to dance with us. Although dance is labor, but they like it. So the next stage is to associate with us, to understand more and more. Right? Even when Prabhupada, he went to this Tompkins Square Park, then he was playing Hare Krishna, but then there was these hippies, they were dancing around. Something was there. So this Ras Leela, so dancing is on the topmost platform. The Ras Leela was performed on this day. Krishna, in the full moon night, he played the flute and the girls assembled and there was dance. There is similar dance, just like ball dance in your country. But the specific significance of this dance was that Krishna bifurcated himself. He expanded himself. In so many boys, as many girls there were, and they began to dance in pair. That is some substance, sum and substance of Rasa Leela. If you go to Vrindavan and if you like to dance with Krishna, the facility is for you. That is the ultimate goal of our life. So therefore, dancing for Krishna itself is a separate limb of devotional service. Then, Dandavan Natihi means to do Dandavat Pranam. In Naradiya Purana, there's a statement about bowing down and offering respect to the deity. It is said there, a person who has performed a great ritualistic sacrifice and a person who has simply offered his respectful obeisances by bowing down before the Lord cannot be held as equals. It's very important. The person who has executed many great sacrifices will attain the result of his pious activities. But when such results are finished, he has to take birth again on the earthly planet. However, the person who has once offered respects, only once offered respects, bowing down before the deity, will not come back to this world because he will go directly to the abode of Krishna. Right? And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, it's mentioned Siddhanta Vaibhav, volume 1, chapter 22, regarding altruism and charity. So the kind of sacrifices which were done in previous ages, in Kali Yuga will not be able to do these kind of sacrifices. It's just not possible. The Brahmanas are not available, and the ingredients for the sacrifices is not very easy to obtain. For some sacrifices, we need pots of water from all the rivers around India, all the pious rivers. So 22 pots you will have to bring. So Brahmanas in previous ages, they'll start before the sacrifice starts. The preparation itself will be for almost 1 year. So all the Brahmanas, because there's no train, there's no vehicles, there's no bus, there's no bullock cart at the max. So they will walk, and Brahmanas will not get into any of these carts. So they'll walk to different regions of India from particular place, take multiple pots of water, and take the water from the river, and then again walk back. So it'll take months and months to get these sacred waters. And then the preparation, the Yajna Vidhi, or the arena, construction of that arena itself is made according to geometrical, according to some geometry, specific geometry. Specific sacrifices will have specific geometry. Some Yajna Kunda will have a shape like a fish. Some Yajna Kunda will have another kind of a shape. Like that. All these are mentioned in Shastras. For this particular sacrifice, this kind of shape should be there. This particular sacrifice, this kind of shape should be there. These many bricks should be used. Or this should be the length of the bricks. And that way the arrangement is made. And the whole area is constructed. And even if you see in Mahabharata also, whenever a sacrifice has to be done, the king will create a palace itself. The whole arena will be constructed, and that itself will take around 5, 6 or 7 months. So preparation for a sacrifice itself will take this much amount of months. And then the Brahmanas have to be called. There are different 4 types of Brahmanas. All these ingredients have to be arranged. And the sacrifice is conducted. So it's a huge task. And this kind of endeavor is not possible to take up in Kali Yuga. Correct? It's not possible. And specifically, there are no Brahmanas. So people who are pious, who have this pious inclination, what they do is they take to this charity and altruistic kind of activities, philanthropic activities, which are also mentioned in Shastra. Although they might not know it, but still they take it up. So Siddhanta Saraswati, taking that as an example in this yuga, he says, the thousands of karmis who have opened innumerable hospitals, it's considered the most glorious work if we can open a hospital. And the reason is that people know that people are suffering. This material world is a place of suffering. There's always some problem or the other. So therefore hospitals are required. And one who makes a hospital is glorified like anything. Old age homes, centers for the poor, and schools. So thousands of karmis have opened all these kind of things. And the thousands of jnanis who have undergone meditation and severe austerities are insignificant compared to a single Kanishtadhikari Vaishnava once ringing the bell before the Lord's deity. So thousands of karmis who have opened innumerable hospitals, innumerable old age homes, thousands of centers for poor, lots of schools, and the jnanis who have undergone meditation and severe austerities for years and years together, they are insignificant compared to one single Kanishtadhikari, a neophyte devotee who comes to the temple and rings the bell once. So he gets much, much more benefit than all these people put together. This is not sectarianism, but plain truth. Atheists are wholly incapable of realizing this. Thus they become either direct or indirect blasphemers of devotional service or adherents to the doctrine of harmonistic all-inclusiveness. Right? So, devotional service to the Lord is so potent that such an insignificant thing as ringing a bell itself is much, much more beneficial to a person than one who engages only in these karmic activities. And as Srila Prabhupada said, it will lead only to repeated birth again. Once the results are finished of his pious activities, philanthropic, altruistic, charitable activities, he has to take birth again. And then he's entangled in his karmic activities. But one who enters into the temple of the Lord, he gets lots of benefit. Standing up to receive the Lord, Abhyutthanam. A person who sees the Lord's Rath-yatra festival and then stands up to receive the Lord can purge all kinds of sinful results from his body. You see the Lord's cart and you just have to stand up. That is enough to purge all kinds of sinful results from his body. But now we have to understand it in this way. Like When one comes, if you remember, when we were discussing about Kleshagni, we spoke about avidya, bija, the sinful desire, seed, and then the sinful activities that one commits. So when Rath Yatra is going on, then people, all the people, they do burn up all their sinful results or sinful activities. They do burn it up. But because the seed of desire is still there within the heart, they again commit sinful activities. And therefore, they remain entangled within this material world. So we should not think that all these statements which are mentioned in different Puranas, it is not effective, or it does not work, or it's just false glorification. Just like one of the offenses to the holy name is that to think that the glorification of the holy name is just an imaginary thing. Correct? So that's the blasphemy. Similarly, those glorifications which are mentioned about devotional service in different shastras, we should not think that it's only to eulogize something. It actually is not effective. That's not the point. Anything that is mentioned in the shastra is actually quite effective. It works. But in front of our mundane eyes, it does not seem that it is manifesting like this. Just like it said, we discussed, in Jagannath Puri, the demigods see all the inhabitants of Jagannath Puri as having 4 hands, 400 form. Means they are considered as the associates of the Lord. They are the associates of the Lord. That's there. But apparently, by their activities, it might not seem that they are behaving like one of the associates of the Lord. But when Shastra says this, we have to accept it. That's what it is. They are the associates of the Lord. And therefore, we should deal with them carefully. So when it says that one who stands up to receive the Lord can purge all kinds of sinful results from his body, it does happen. But because his sinful desire seed is not yet removed, he has not taken up to this activity of devotional service, he again commits up sinful activities. And thus he remains entangled. But although at that particular moment when the Rath Yatra comes, everybody is purged of sinful results. The Lord does not go anywhere where his associates are not there. So wherever he goes, people are purified. That is the point. Whomever the Lord comes in contact with, people are purified. So when the Rath Yatra goes to the streets of different cities, people who look at the Lord, who follow the Rath Yatra, or who get up when the Lord is coming, they're all purified of all these reactions. And then they end up getting more entangled because of their activities later on. Then, following the deity. A similar statement is there in Bhavishya Purana, in which it is said, even if born of a lowly family, a person who follows the Rath Yatra car, when the deities pass in front, or from behind, will surely be elevated to the position of achieving equal opulence with Vishnu. So, Srila Prabhupada comments regarding this from chapter 6. In this connection, it may be noted that in India, especially in Vishnu temples, the system is that apart from the big deity, who is permanently situated in the main area of the temple, there is a set of smaller deities. It's called Utsav Vigraha. There's Mula Vigraha and Utsav Vigraha. Utsav Vigraha is the Vigraha, the smaller deities which are taken in procession during festivals, which are taken in procession in the evening. In some temples, it is the custom to hold a big procession in the evening with a band playing and a nice big umbrella over the deities who sit on decorated thrones on the cart or palanquin, which is carried by devotees. The deities come out onto the street and travel in the neighborhood, while the people of the neighborhood come out to offer Prasharam. The residents of the neighborhood all follow the procession. So it is a very nice scene. When the deity is coming out, the servitors to the temple put forward the daily accounts before them. So much was the collection, so much was the expenditure. The whole idea is that the deity is considered to be the proprietor of the whole establishment, and all the priests and other people taking care of the temple are considered to be the servants of the deity. This system is very old and is still followed. So therefore, it is mentioned here that when the deity is on stroll, the people should follow behind. Right? So this is the injunction. Right. Then sthane gatihi, going to the temple of Vishnu or to places of pilgrimage. It is said in the Puranas, persons who attempt to visit the holy places of pilgrimage like Vrindavan, Mathura or Dwaraka are actually glorified. By such traveling activities, they can pass over the desert of material existence. Yesterday we discussed about living in such holy places, and even an attempt to visit these holy places also is quite effective. In Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya, there is a statement about the benefit of visiting the temples of Lord Krishna. As we explained previously, in Vrindavan, Mathura and Dwaraka, the system is that all devotees take advantage of visiting various temples. It is stated in Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya, persons who are impelled by pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness and who therefore go to see the deities of Vishnu in the temple will surely get relief from entering again into the prison house of a mother's womb. The conditioned soul forgets the trouble of living within the mother's womb during birth. But it's a very painful and terrible experience. Right? None of us remember how we suffered. In order to make an escape from this material condition, one is advised to visit a temple of Vishnu with devotional consciousness. Then one can very easily get out of the miserable condition of material birth. So the attitude or the consciousness should be devotional consciousness, understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and I have to render pure devotional service unto Him. That consciousness, one should enter inside the temple. Then he will not be, or he will not again go through this miserable condition of birth and death. Srila Prabhupada wrote, in Vrindavan, the system is followed very strictly. All the devotees in town go every morning and evening to visit different temples. Therefore, during these times, there are considerable crowds all over the city. There are about 5,000 temples in Vrindavan city. Of course, it is not possible to visit all the temples. But there are at least 1 dozen very big and important temples which were started by the Goswamis. But there are at least 1 dozen very big and important temples which were started by the Goswamis and which should be visited. Right. So, this is just one more reference, maybe it's not here. So Srila Prabhupada specifically said that devotees should live near to the temple and they should make a point that, or maybe it will come when we discuss about deity worship in Archana. So he said that the devotees should remain, or they should make an effort to remain or live closer to a temple. Those who are in ashram, of course, for them it's a big benefit. But those who are outside, the grihasthas specifically, who are living outside the temple, they should make, or they should mold or arrange their life in such a way that they live next to the temple. And they should make sure that they come to the temple regularly, at least once or twice in a day. The more times they come, the more benefit or more good or better it is. So they must do. So there's a letter regarding this that Prabhupada wrote. I thought I had it here, but maybe it's at a different place. So when we come to that, we'll discuss this. But Srila Prabhupada said that. And those who are not able to stay closer to the temple, they can engage in deity worship in their home itself. Okay, so then again, if they're initiated, second initiated, then yes. Or if not, then whatever activities they do, they can offer it to the Lord. Like this, with a photo of the deity or a picture of the deity, and then offer like this. Do kirtan. The best thing that Srila Prabhupada said was that you can do kirtan. The best thing to do is, you can always do kirtan in front of the altar. And that itself is complete. Nam Sankirtan is the best method. Right. Then circumambulating the temple of Vishnu. In Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya, it is said, a person who is circumambulating the deity of Vishnu can counteract the circumambulation of repeated birth and death in this material world. The conditioned soul is circumambulating through repeated births and deaths on account of its material existence. And this can be counteracted simply by circumambulating the deity in the temple. Chapter 6. In every temple, there is an arrangement to go around the temple at least 3 times. Some devotees go around more than 3 times, 10 times, 15 times, according to their vows. The Goswamis used to circumambulate Govardhan Hill. One should also circumambulate the whole Vrindavan area. So there is Parikrama, this Vrindavan Parikrama. Then there is Govardhan Parikrama, this Navadvip Parikrama. So this is an act of devotional service. One should circumambulate. And in 8th chapter, it's mentioned that one should not circumambulate in front of the deities. So one should not circumambulate in front of the deities like this. Because then we are showing the back to our deity. So that is an offense. One should not do that. Circumambulation should be done around the deity, not in front of the deity. Okay. Then right. So Chaturmasa ceremony is observed during the 4 months of the rainy season in India, beginning from Shravana. During these 4 months, saintly persons who are accustomed to travel from one place to another to propagate Krishna consciousness remain at one place, usually a holy place of pilgrimage. During these times, there are certain special rules and regulations which are strictly followed. In the Skanda Purana, during that period, it's mentioned, if someone circumambulates the temple of Vishnu at least 4 times, it is understood that he has traveled all over the universe. Okay, so it should be like this. So if someone circumambulates the temple of Vishnu at least 4 times, it is understood that he has traveled all over the universe. By such circumambulation, one is understood to have seen all the holy places where the Ganges water is flowing. And by following the relative principles of Chaturmasya, one can very quickly be raised to the platform of devotional service. So even during the time when, or those sannyasis who move around, they stay in one place during Chaturmasya. That time if you circumambulate the temple, they get the same benefit, or actually much more benefit than going around. Okay. Atha Archanam. So this is with respect to deity worship. Archana means worship of the deity in the temple. By executing this process, one confirms himself to be not the body, but spirit soul. In 10th canto, it is told how Sudama, an intimate friend of Krishna's, while going to the house of a Brahmana, murmured to himself. So this Sudama is the cowherd boy in Vrindavan area. Simply by worshipping Krishna, one can easily achieve all the results of heavenly opulence, liberation, supremacy over the planetary systems of the universe, all the opulences of this material world, and the mystic power of performing the yoga system. The events leading to Sudama's murmuring the statement are as follows. Sri Krishna had ordered his friend Sudama to go to Brahmana's house and ask for some food. The Brahmanas were performing great sacrifice, and Sri Krishna told Sudama to plead with them that he and Balaram were feeling hungry and needed some food. Sudama went there. The Brahmanas refused to offer anything, but the wives of the Brahmanas, upon hearing that Sri Krishna wanted some foodstuff, immediately took many palatable dishes and went to offer them to Sri Krishna. Okay, so this is the context. And he says, simply by worshipping Krishna, Archana, simply by worshipping Krishna, one can easily achieve all the results of heavenly opulence, liberation, supremacy over planetary systems of the universe, all the opulences of this material world, and the mystic power of performing the yoga system. So the point is, by worshipping Krishna, all these things are possible. But a pure devotee does not aspire for these things. These are not the goals for which he does the deity worship. He does deity worship for attaining pure devotion service. His worship itself is an act of pure devotion, which is anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam. So all of these things are possible to attain just by worshipping Krishna. These things are not the goal of one who is cultivating pure devotional service. In Vishnu Rahasya, it is stated, any person within this world who is engaged in the worship of Vishnu can very easily achieve the ever blissful kingdom of God known as Vaikuntha Loka. Right. So this concept, this whole thing about deity worship is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 24, text 334. It's a big purport, so I did not include it here. So you can go and read where 16 items, the preliminary 16 items or different, the 16 upcharas are mentioned, and then elaborately 64 upcharas are also mentioned, which are involved in deity worship. And then what should be one's mood in approaching the deity, that is also written there by Srila Prabhupada. So this is again a reference. If you want to get more details, you can go and read that. Now, there are some references here which shows how effective or how important deity worship is. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhava says to Lord Krishna, this is 11th canto, I consider worship of you in your deity form to be the most beneficial of all spiritual practices. The benefits of deity worship are numerous, as Srila Prabhupada describes. The following quotations list some of the results attained by those who worship the deity. This is from Pancharatra Pradeep. Okay, just some benefits are there, which Srila Prabhupada spoke. If one attains perfection deity worship, that is called Archana Siddhi. Archana Siddhi means simply by deity worship, one goes back to Godhead immediately after this life. Therefore, deity worship is also one of the 5 important angas. Right? We discussed this. So, Archanam. If you carry on your service to Radha and Krishna, according to the prescribed rules, your love of Krishna will increase more and more. This you are seeing practically by the grace of Krishna. We are following the prescribed method of temple worship, as it is the effective program for developing the highest perfection of pure love for Krishna. Right? Which is a letter from Srila Prabhupada. The deity must be very nicely worshipped, dressed and fed, etc. In so doing, you will always be peaceful and enlivened. So many people are coming to the New Delhi temple because of the nice deity worship. This is very good. Keep the standard of deity worship very nicely, and people will automatically be attracted. Right? We discussed yesterday. That's the goal or purpose of why Srila Prabhupada encouraged the construction of big temples, so that people can come, take advantage of seeing the aarti of the deity. They can also, the Sankirtan, they can hear the kirtans and participate in the kirtans, listen to lectures, take books, and have a very good experience, and take prasadam also. So everything, the limbs, the most important limbs of devotional service are automatically encapsulated when one comes into a temple. Correct? Reading of Srimad Bhagavatam happens when he hears the lectures. Deity worship happens. Then Kirtan, Nam Sankirtan is going on. correct? And he associates with devotees. He partakes of Prasharam. So all these things are automatically fulfilled when one just enters or comes to the temple. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada made this very important program where all the 5 aspects are automatically taken care of. The most important aspects of devotional service. So one who comes and he partakes of all these things, when he associates with the devotees, he listens to lectures and does all these things, then automatically it's considered that he is performing devotional service. So his devotional service starts at that point just by entering into the temple. Because therefore, all these activities which Srila Prabhupada mentioned that temple should have, it should be there. Amazing deity worship, wonderful, beautiful deity worship should be there, and lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam, different scriptures should go on regularly. Okay, that should be the method. Kirtans should go on regularly, 24-hour kirtans, things like that should go on regularly. There should be profuse distribution of prasadam. And devotees should always be there to take care of those people who come to the temple. So all these things automatically are arranged in such a way. So Prabhupada has had a very nice, amazing vision in that sense to engage even outside people in devotional service. And that should be the goal for us also. Then, living in Vaikuntha. So we're already in Vaikuntha, we're participating in the temple activities. Because everything is centered around Krishna. What is happening in Krishna? Everybody is serving Krishna, everything is centered around Krishna. Everything is centered around Lord Vishnu. So here in temple also, all the activities are centered around the Lord. So therefore, by participating in temple activities, one is already in Vaikuntha. We have established worship of the deity in our temple so that all day long, one will automatically think of Krishna. He is so kind. Right? We discussed this in a Rishoprishad that the Lord appears out of his causeless mercy as the Archa Vigraha. This is his inconceivability. This is Achintya, that he comes as a deity. This is causeless mercy. By nicely worshipping the deities, we can be so pure in condition of health, mind and intelligence. To subdue lust is a different process. Then you have to take to deity worship. Krishna is Madan Mohan. I am sure this process, helped by your regular chanting, will kill Mr. Lust. Rest assured. So, to kill lust, one must take to deity worship. I am pleased that you are decorating your temple nicely. And the more you decorate the temple beautifully, the more your heart will be beautiful. The example is that the more you decorate the original, the more the reflection automatically is decorated. So our heart is the reflection of the original consciousness, Krishna. And the more Krishna and his paraphernalia are decorated, the more this will be reflected in our heart. And we will feel transcendental bliss. Therefore, we should make that we do not make any compromise in deity worship. We want to purify ourselves, we decorate the Lord profusely. We make him as beautiful as possible, and the same would be reflected within our heart. Preachers in the Krishna conscious movement have actually experienced that even the Yavanas and Mlechas have taken to spiritual life on the strength of Narad Muni's Pancharatriki Vidhi. When mankind follows the disciplic succession as recommended by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone throughout the world will benefit. Right? Discuss this. This is one of the reasons why Uddhava was advised to go to Batrikashram, where the Lord is personally represented by Naranarayana deity. One who is transcendently advanced can gain direct inspiration from the temple deity. And thus a devotee of the Lord always takes shelter of a recognized temple of the Lord in order to make tangible advancement in transcendental knowledge by the grace of the Lord. Studying all the Vedas. Anyone who engages in the worship of the deity or the form of the Lord in the temple is understood to be studying all the Vedas 24 hours a day. Simply by decorating the deities of the Lord, Radha and Krishna, in the temple, one very minutely studies the injunctions of the Vedas. Even a neophyte devotee who simply engages in the worship of the deity is understood to be in direct touch with the purport of the Vedic knowledge. It's to worship Krishna. And it's actually happening. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Vedescha Sarvair Ahameva Vedyaha. The purport of the Vedas is to understand him, Krishna. One who worships and serves Krishna directly has understood the truths of the Vedas. We worship Lakshmi, Radharani, along with Narayana, Krishna. We collect money from various sources. But that money does not belong to anyone but Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi Narayana. If money is utilized in the service of Lakshmi Narayana, the devotee automatically lives in an opulent way. Because we are under his shelter. And if he obviously is opulent, so we also become opulent that way. Okay. Upon seeing the charming forms of the Lord, smiling and attractive, and hearing his very pleasing words, the pure devotee almost loses all other consciousness. His senses are freed from all other engagements and he becomes absorbed in devotional service. Thus, in spite of his unwillingness, he attains liberation without separate endeavor. Okay. And then imperceptible liberation. So Srila Prabhupada writes that there are three divisions of devotees: first class, second class, and third class. Even the third class devotees are liberated souls. See, it is explained in this verse that although this is from Bhagavatam 3rd canto, chapter 25, text 36, purport. It is explained in this verse that although they do not have knowledge, simply by seeing the beautiful decoration of the deity in the temple, the devotee is absorbed in thought of him and loses all other consciousness. Simply by fixing oneself in Krishna consciousness, engaging the senses in the service of the Lord, one is imperceptibly liberated. Imperceptibly liberated means that he cannot perceive that he is liberated, but then he is liberated. That's imperceptible liberation. Even the third class devotee who is not advanced in knowledge of the absolute truth, but simply offers obeisances with great devotion, thinks of the Lord, sees the Lord in the temple, and brings forth flowers and fruits to offer to the deity, becomes imperceptibly liberated. Shraddhayan vitaha. With great devotion, the devotees offer worshipful respects and paraphernalia to the deity. The deities of Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi, Narayana, and Ram and Sita are very attractive to devotees, so much so that when they see the statue decorated in the temple of the Lord, they become fully absorbed in thought of the Lord. This we have experienced. We go to ISKCON temples, then the deities are so beautifully decorated that the mind is completely absorbed in them. You go to Mayapur or Vrindavan, you see Radha Shyam Sundar or Radha Madhava, Ashtasakis. The mind is totally absorbed. That is the state of liberation. So when the mind is absorbed in the form of the Lord, that is the state of liberation. In other words, it is confirmed herewith that even a third class devotee is in the transcendental position above those who are trying for liberation by speculation or by other methods. Even great impersonalists like Shukdev Goswami and the four Kumaras were attracted by the beauty of the deities in the temple, by the decorations and by the aroma of Tulsi offered to the Lord. And they became devotees. Even though they were in the liberated state, instead of remaining impersonalists, they were attracted by the beauty of the Lord and became devotees. Then, Archana Paddhati, or touching the deity, one gets a spiritual body. Because you're directly in contact with the deity, who is completely spiritual. Archana Paddhati, daily worship of the deity, provides an opportunity to touch the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus, it enables one to be fortunate enough to get a spiritual body and go back to Godhead. Not only by touching the body of the Supreme Lord, but simply by hearing about his pastimes, chanting his glories, touching his feet, and offering worship. In other words, by serving the Lord somehow or other, one is purified of material contamination. This is the result of touching the Supreme Lord. So we have all the facilities of attaining pure devotional service. We just should be aware, we should be conscious that devotional consciousness should be there. The consciousness of rendering pure devotional service should be there. So when that is there, then all our activities also are molded according to our consciousness. If we have this attitude of rendering devotional service, pure devotional service, then automatically the impetus will arise to do some service for the Lord. Because pure devotional service means it must be expressed. And the expression, it comes in the form of service. So the attitude, if it's proper, then the expression automatically comes. But if we are not fixed in Krishna consciousness, if our determination is wavering and we have material desires, then this vyavasayatmaka buddhi will not happen. Fixed determination to perform pure devotional service will not happen. And that way our activities are also not doubted for pure devotional service. So the mind or the attitude should be completely proper. It should be fixed in Krishna consciousness. It should be fixed in rendering pure devotional service. The thought should be, how can I do service now, at this particular moment? This is what is the activity which is to be done. How can it be done? In pure devotional attitude. That should be there. Okay. Rendering service to the Lord. Paricharya. This is similar to Archana. Any person who can arrange for service to the Lord in the same way that a king is given service by his attendants is surely elevated to the abode of Krishna after death. Actually, in India, the temples are just like royal palaces. They are not ordinary buildings, because the worship of Krishna should be performed in just the way that the king is worshipped in his palace. So in Vrindavan, there are many hundreds of temples wherein the deity is worshipped exactly like a king. And if you see, even in West also, these big churches were there when Prabhupada went. And what did he do? He purchased those churches because nobody was coming to the churches anyways. So he purchased those big churches which looked like palaces. So King Krishna was worshipped like king in the Western countries as well. So actually, it was a deliberate endeavor on Srila Prabhupada's part. If we read the memoirs of his disciples or what they have written about Srila Prabhupada, it was Prabhupada's actually active endeavor to procure such kind of palaces or big churches which can be made into temples for Krishna. If a person stays in the temple even for a few moments, he can surely achieve the transcendental kingdom of God. The conclusion is that those who are rich men in society should construct beautiful temples and arrange for the worship of Vishnu so that people may be attracted to visit such temples and thereby be offered the opportunity of dancing before the Lord or chanting the holy name of the Lord or else of hearing the holy name of the Lord. Right? So many people come. Even yesterday also when we were having this class, yesterday was this Tamil New Year. So many people were coming and they were taking darshan of the deities. And whatever we were discussing about Krishna consciousness, some people sat also and they were listening to that. So that itself increases the fortune according to the statement. If a person stays in the Lord's temple, some people stayed there for some time yesterday, he can surely achieve the transcendental kingdom of the God. The devotional service starts at that point. Although they might not be aware what they are doing, but the devotional service starts at that point. It's considered as devotional service. So therefore, people should construct beautiful temples and arrange for worship of Vishnu so that general people will be attracted to such temples. And it's an opportunity of dancing before the Lord. When there is festivals, many people come, chanting the holy name of the Lord, kirtans are there, and else hearing of the holy name of the Lord. Just by hearing also, they get nice benefit. In this way, everyone will be given the chance to elevate himself to the kingdom of God. In other words, even a common man, simply by visiting such a temple, will be able to attain the highest benedictions. Not to mention the devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord in full Krishna consciousness. So in this connection, in 4th canto, it's mentioned that this is King Prithu says to his citizens, "My dear citizens, please note that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is actually the deliverer of all fallen conditioned souls. No demigod can perform this act of delivering the conditioned souls because the demigods themselves are conditioned. A conditioned soul cannot deliver another conditioned soul. So don't engage in demigod worship. Only Krishna or his bona fide representative can deliver him. The Ganges water, which is flowing down from the toe of Lord Vishnu, falls upon the earthly planet and other planets and thereby delivers all the conditioned sinful living entities. So what need is there to speak of the deliverance of persons who are always engaged in the service of the Lord? There is no doubt about their liberation, even if they have stocks of sinful activities from many births. In other words, a person who is engaged in the worship of deities can minimize the stock of sinful reactions coming from many previous births. So this is the process of worshipping the deity. And one should follow this rules seriously. Right? Okay. So singing. One should sing for the Lord. So Linga Purana, right? It's characterized as one of the Tamasic Puranas, but then the glory of the Lord comes there. Linga Purana, it's mentioned that a Brahmana who is constantly engaged in singing the glories of the Lord is surely elevated to the same planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna appreciates this singing even more than the prayers offered by Lord Shiva. Right? Hare Salokyam Apnoti. They go to the abode of the Lord. And they get this liberation of Salokya. So singing songs is forbidden for the Brahmanas. This is Shiva Goswami comments. So the sentence means even the Brahmana, this singing before the Lord is greater than Shiva singing. So according to Vedic culture, Brahmana is not supposed to sing. He can chant Vedic mantras, but he should not sing. But in glorification of the Lord, he must sing. A Brahmana must sing for the glorification of the Lord, but for any other purposes, he should not sing. No cinema songs, nothing. He should not sing. That's it. But only those songs which can be, okay, this is the comment. It is forbidden for a Brahmana to sing any songs other than songs in praise of the Lord. Okay. Okay, now Sankirtan. So, Nama Lila Gunadinam Uchair Bhasha to Kirtanam. So, Kirtan is defined as the loud chanting of the names, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. When a person loudly chants the glories of the Lord's activities, qualities, and form, etc., his chanting is called Sankirtan. Sankirtan also refers to the congregation chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So, Narottam Das Thakur says this is the gift of the spiritual sky. Golokera Premadhan, Harinama Sankirtan. This Harinam, Hare Krishna, this is called Harinam. Nama means name. Sankirtan. Sankirtan means just like we are assembled here, many boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and conjointly we are chanting. This is called Sankirtan. Bahuvir Militva Kirtiyati. It is Sankirtan. When many people assemble together and chant the glorification of the Lord, that is called Sankirtan, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So Sankirtan means this, glorification of the Lord. Kirtan means glorification of the Lord. Kirtan is not meant for our personal sense gratification. It's not music to the ears. It's transcendental pleasure in the sense that the Lord is glorified. And the devotee's understanding or by the glorification of the Lord, he feels transcendental bliss. That is the goal, or that is the attitude, or that should be the consciousness when one is engaged in Sankirtan, one is doing Kirtan. Kirtan is not for our personal sense gratification. Kirtan is meant only for the satisfaction of the Lord. And the devotee gets satisfied by just observing by his consciousness of how the Lord is being glorified so nicely. If nice music is playing on, one should have this idea of how the Lord is getting pleasure out of this nice music. Like that. Not that we enjoy this Kirtan. So we introduce different kinds of instruments. So there's standards for Kirtan because of that purpose only. Because this Kirtan can be done, the name can be chanted. But the standards are there because the focus does not change from the Lord to ourselves. So therefore the standards of Kirtan should be maintained. So there are three types as mentioned. There is Nama Kirtan. And in Vishnu Dharma, it says that this word Krishna is so auspicious that anyone who chants this holy name immediately gets rid of the resultant actions of sinful activities from many, many births. And Chaitanya Charitamrita it's mentioned, a person who chants the holy name of Krishna once can counteract the resultant actions of more sinful activities than he is able to perform. A sinful man can perform many, many sinful activities, but he is unable to perform so many that they cannot be wiped out by one single uttering of Krishna. Right? So this is the potency of the holy name. Okay, so again, this is a reference which I would suggest you please go home and read. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 7, text 83. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking to Prakashananda Saraswati. And when this discussion came up as to why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is singing like a sentiment the holy names of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks about that. So in that context, he says, it's the nature of Hare Krishna Mahamantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. So this is Ishwarapuri telling to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the holy name and he felt, he was maddened by the holy name. So he went to Ishwarapuri and asked that you asked me to chant the holy names of the Lord. When I did, that this is the result I am getting. So Ishwarapuri responds, he says, it's the nature of Hare Krishna Mahamantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continues speaking to Prakashananda Saraswati. This is the reason, because my spiritual master, he saw me as a fool and he said, you cannot study Vedanta. Therefore, you chant the holy names of the Lord. And this is what happened to me when I chant the holy names of the Lord. And Ishwarapuri approved of it. So because my Guru has approved of it, therefore, I keep chanting the holy names. And I am not indulging in the study of the Vedantic principles like this. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu responding to Prakashananda Saraswati's question as to why he's behaving like a bhavuka, whereas as a sannyasi, he should be studying Vedanta. So the purport explains the different, or not different, but the glories of the holy name of the Lord. So we will not have time to go through this. So please, this is the reference, Adi Leela, chapter 7, text 83. You can read this. Then, in Untitled chapter 4, text 70 and 71, it's mentioned, among the ways of executing devotional service, the 9 prescribed methods are the best. For these processes have great potency to deliver Krishna and ecstatic love for him. Of the 9 processes of devotional service, the most important is to always chant the holy name of the Lord. If one does so, avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses, one very easily obtains the most valuable love of Godhead. Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha, he says, chanting the holy name is the chief means of attaining love of Godhead. This chanting or devotional service does not depend on any paraphernalia, nor one's having taken birth in good family. By humility and meekness, one attracts the attention of Krishna. That is the verdict of all the Vedas. Therefore, if one becomes very humble and meek, he can easily attain the lotus feet of Krishna in this age of Kali. That is the fulfillment of all great sacrifices, penances, and austerities, because when one achieves extractive love of Godhead, he attains the complete perfection of life. Therefore, whatever one does in executing devotional service must be accompanied by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So even while performing deity worship, one should chant the holy names of the Lord. Okay, it's actually one of the principles of performing devotional service. That when doing devotional service, of Archana, during deity worship itself, the Lord accepts the offerings by chanting of this holy name. And specifically when we are decorating the deity of the Lord, it's specifically mentioned that one must chant the holy names. One must chant this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It's very important. This is another reference, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Text 39. It speaks about this, the glories of the holy name. So you can read that as well. The Leela Kirtanam, Maharaj Prahlad offers the following prayers to the Lord. My dear Lord Nrsimha, if I can be elevated to the position of a servant, then it will be possible for me to hear about your activities. You are the supreme friend, the supreme worshipable deity. Your pastimes are transcendental, and simply by hearing of them, one can counteract all his sinful activities. Therefore, I shall not care for all the sinful activities, because simply by hearing about your pastimes, I shall get out of all the contamination of material attachment. Right? So there are many songs about the Lord's activities. For example, there is Brahma Samhita, there is Narada Pancharatra, and there is Srimad Bhagavatam. If these songs are heard by any person, he can easily get out of the clutches of material contamination. There should be no difficulty in hearing these songs of God. They're coming down from many, many millions of years ago, and people are still taking advantage of them. So why at this time should one not take full advantage and thus become liberated? It's easily available. One should study Srimad Bhagavatam. Guna Kirtan. My dear Vyas, you should know that persons who are engaged in executing austerities and penances, studying the Vedas, performing big sacrifices, chanting the hymns of the Vedas, speculating on transcendental knowledge, and performing charitable functions have for all their auspicious activities simply to gain a place in the association of devotees and chant the glories of the Lord. So this is the goal. The goal of executing austerities, penances, studying the Vedas, big sacrifices, chanting the hymns of the Vedas, speculating on transcendental knowledge, performing charitable functions. All these different types of activities which are recommended in the Vedic scriptures are actually meant to only gain a place in the association of devotees and chant the glories of the Lord. It's indicated here that chanting about and glorifying the Lord is the ultimate activity of the living entity. Right? Satanam kirtayanto mam yadantasya dridhavrataha namasyantasya mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. This is the qualification of a pure devotee. He always engages in chanting the glories of the Lord. Satanam kirtayanto mam. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this. Then, japa. Chanting a mantra or hymn softly and slowly is called japa. Chanting the same mantra loudly is called kirtan. Simple. For example, uttering the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, very softly, only for one's own hearing, is called japa. Chanting the same mantra loudly for being heard by all others is called kirtan. The Mahamantra can be used for japa and kirtan also. When japa is practiced, it is for the personal benefit of the chanter. But when kirtan is performed, it is for the benefit of all others who may hear. Right. So there are some technical details. And this is one we will see. In Bhakti Sandarbha, Sri Jiva Goswami, in Anucheta 276, he says, in the Javali Samhita, the process of Nama Smaran has been described in the following way. So, Nama Smaran is remembering the holy names of the Lord, chanting in the mind. It is Nama Smaran, without making extraneous noise. You see what Prabhupada wrote here? He wrote that, where is it? Uttering the Mahamantra only for one's own hearing is called japa. So japa, when it's done, it should be done softly and one should be able to hear. Srila Prabhupada was very particular when he explained how chanting should be done. That one should be able to hear the Mahamantra. The mind should not go here and there. Just concentrate on hearing what you are chanting. And that should be soft. it should be heard only by the person who's chanting. That is called as japa. And namasmaran means when one chants the holy names in his mind. So you see what Jiva Goswami says here. Those who are desirous of obtaining unlimited varieties of spiritual bliss should always perform japa, meditation, dhyana, and singing and kirtan of the topmost names of Sri Hari. But in the practice of namasmaran, one cannot obtain spiritual bliss as long as the heart remains impure. Whereas the practice of nama sankirtan does not depend on purification of the heart. Therefore, nama smaran is less effective than nama sankirtan, and nama sankirtan has greater importance. So one should not say, or one should not think that he's chanting in his mind, he's finishing his rounds in his mind, because the heart, as long as it's not pure, one will not be able to chant within his mind. The mind is always going here and there. So that should not be done. So one should engage in nama sankirtan. And it is also said that mantras which are chanted loudly, in the general Vedic sense, mantras which are chanted loudly, they are very effective. But those which are contemplative, the mantras which are chanted in the mind, are superior, it is said, or much, I will not say effective, but they are considered to be superior to the mantras which are chanted loudly. But when it comes to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, Nam Sankirtan is more important than Nama Smaran. That's what Srila Jiva Goswami is saying, because Nam Sankirtan benefits oneself as well as others. So that's why this Diksha mantras, Pancharatri Diksha mantras are given to those who have been purified by chanting of the holy names and who can concentrate their mind in chanting those mantras. So therefore, this second initiation mantras are chanted not loudly, they are chanted in the mind. One should not utter, or the lips should not move when those mantras are chanted. But it should be chanted in the mind, because those are Pancharatrik mantras, those are Diksha mantras, different. But when it comes to the holy name of the Lord, it's always chanted aloud. Okay, and there is no offense in chanting like this. Or rather, it's benefit, not offense. In the Padma Purana, there is statement, for any person who's chanting the holy name either softly or loudly, the paths to liberation, even heavenly happiness, are at once open. Compared to a person who's attached to chanting japa, the person who performs loud chanting of the holy name is 100 times better. This is because the person who chants japa purifies himself, whereas the person who chants holy name loudly in kirtan purifies himself. All those who are with him and everyone else who hears the holy vibration. Okay, so we still have lots to cover. Submission, atha vijnaptihi. In Skanda Purana, there is a statement about submission onto the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said that those who are sober devotees can offer their submission to Krishna in the following three ways. There is Samprarthanatmika, Dainya Bodhika, and Lalsamai. So desiring some perfection state in spiritual life is not sense gratification. Correct? We have discussed this. When one realizes something of the constitutional relationship, he understands his origin position, wants to be reinstated in his position either as friend, servant, parent, or conjugal lover of Krishna. That is called lalasamai, or very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. So desiring some perfectional stage. Okay, that is called as lalsamai prayers. So these are prayers, pratna. Then this lalsamai stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called swarupa siddhi. And our acharyas mentioned that lalsamai is possible only when one has attained the stage of bhava, of having or desiring for one perfectional stage. So this is in Narottama Thakur's Prarthana in introduction. It's mentioned lalsamai prayers are made by devotee in whom attachment for the Lord is already manifest. So it's come to the level of bhava or prema. Some prarthanatmika prayers are made by devotee in whom attachment to the Lord is not yet manifest. These are prayers for awakening one's attachment. The Innebodhika are expressions of feelings of humility and one's utter worthlessness for having not worshipped the Supreme Lord. So then there are references for Samprarthanatmika, Dainyabodhika, and Lalsamai. Samprarthanatmika. So this is actually prarthana. These are prayers which are offered to the Lord. So these are these three categories where one submits to the Lord and offers prayers to the Lord. This Samprarthanatmika, Dainyabodhika, where one feels that it's completely useless in rendering devotional service at all to the Lord. And he offers prayers to the Lord in that consciousness. So Samprarthanatmika is to understand that he's humble. He offers his prayers in that way. And Lal Samai is to achieve a specific perfectional stage. So for Samprarthanatmika, it is mentioned, my Lord, this is from Padma Purana. I know that young girls have natural affection for young boys, and that young boys have natural affection for young girls. I am praying at a lotus feet that my mind may be attracted onto you in the same spontaneous way. This is prayer. So Srila Prabhupada explains that there's a natural attraction between boys and girls. So similarly, it's spontaneous. One does not have to teach one to get attracted to a girl or a girl to get attracted to a boy. It's natural, it's spontaneous. Similarly, my attraction also should become spontaneous to you. Like that. So this is a prayer. Dainya Bodhika, again in Padma Purana it is mentioned, my dear Lord, there is no sinful living entity who is more of a sinner than myself. Right? It is Dainya, the utter worthlessness of one's position is offered to the Lord. Nor is there a greater offender than myself. I am so greatly sinful and offensive that when I come to confess my sinful activities before you, I am ashamed. So this is also when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami prays, or is it Vrindavan Das Thakur? He prays that I am lower than Jagai and Madhai. So please bestow your mercy onto me. Who prays that? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, yes. In Chaitanya Charitamrita he prays that I am lower than a worm is stool, lower than even Jagai and Madhai. So please be merciful to me. That's a prayer which can be said as Dainya Bodhika prayer. Okay? Right. And Srila Prabhupada cautions here that there's no wonder that a conditioned soul has committed some sinful activities in past life and they should be admitted. And as soon as this is done, the Lord excuses. So as soon as this is done, then the Lord excuses. But one should not take advantage of the Lord's causeless mercy and expect to be excused over and over again. This mentality is only for shameless people. When I come to confess with sinful activities, I become ashamed. So if a person, it's clearly said that. So if a person is not ashamed of his sinful activities and continues to commit the same sinful activities, this is the most nonsensical proposition. This idea is not accepted in Vedic literature. Chanting of the holy name, one becomes washed clean of all sinful activities from past life. But that does not mean one should again begin sinful activities and expect to be washed off. These are nonsensical propositions and are not admitted in devotional service. Someone may think, for a whole week I may commit sinful activities. Then one day I will go to temple or church and admit my sinful activities so that I can become washed off and again begin my sinning. This is most nonsensical, offensive, and is not acceptable to the author of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Right? Lalasamai. Submission accompanied by the desire for perfection. My dear Lord, when shall that day come when you will ask me to fan your body? And according to your pleasure, you will say, you just fan me in this way. So it's expecting a specific service from the Lord in his humility. So that is Lalasamai. The idea in this verse is that devotee is desiring to personally fan the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means that he is desiring to become the personal associate of the Supreme Lord. Of course, any devotee in any capacity always has direct association with the Lord. But according to his different individual taste, a person desires for just one of these relationships. Here the devotee is desiring to become servant of the Lord and desire to fan the Lord as does his internal energy, Lakshmi. He also wishes that the personality of God will be pleased to give him directions as to how to fan. This submission with transcendental desire or Lalasamai Vigyapti is the highest perfectional stage of spiritual realization. Because this comes only when one desires a specific perfection. So this comes after one crosses the stage of sadhana bhakti. In bhava and prema, where this purification of the heart is almost fully manifest in the stage of bhava, then he desires for such kind of perfection. And this is also somewhat manifested in raganuga sadhana bhakti, where one desires a specific service from the Lord. Spontaneous service is there. Right. Okay. My dear Lord, so this again, this is the Lalsa prayer, Lalsamai prayer. My dear Lord, O lotus-eyed one, when will that day come when on the bank of Yamuna I shall become just like a madman and continue to chant your holy name while incessant tears flow from my eyes? This is another perfectional stage. So one should feelingly pray and become eager to render his particular type of service. In other words, one should learn how to cry for the Lord. One should learn this small technique and he should be very eager and actually cry to become engaged in some particular type of service. This is called laulyam, and such tears are the price for the highest perfection. If one develops this laulyam or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in a particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of God. Otherwise, there is no material calculation for the value of the ticket by which one can enter the kingdom of God. The only price for such entrance is the laulyam lalasamai, or desire and great eagerness. So, in this connection, Jiva Goswami comments, Samprarthana belongs to someone without the appearance of bhava, whereas lalasa or prayers with intense longing belong to a person who has manifested bhava. However, when a prayer, samprarthana, is filled with a similar longing expressing such bhava, even though not attained, it is also called lalasa. So, right, that's what Srila Prabhupada writes here. So we should learn this technique to cry, but this cry is not spontaneous for us. Right? It's not spontaneous. It's like, but we should learn how to cry. So that spontaneity should come. We should come to that level. That is the point. And he should be very eager and actually cry to become engaged in some particular type of service. This is called laulyam. So one should develop attachment for Krishna and he should actually cry. And in that stage, his prayers are considered as lalsamai prayers or intense laulyam, included with lalsamai, the intense eagerness. So he says, such prayer is filled with similar longing. It's also called as lalasa. Thus, this example is classed as lalasamai. Prayers and longing such as these are given here to illustrate the topic. But actually, they should be understood to be examples of raganuga bhakti. Right? So in raganuga stage also, when the spontaneity is achieved, one should start offering these prayers. And that is classified as lalasamai. Also, although lalasamai is actually said to be in the stage of bhava, but still one who is spontaneously engaging in devotional service, when he offers such prayers, they are also classified as lalsamai prayers only. These are technical things basically, but there are these different types of prayers. Okay, athas tava bhataha. According to great learned scholars, the whole Bhagavad Gita contains many authorized prayers, especially in the 11th chapter, where Arjuna prays to the universal form. Similarly, in the Gautama Tantra, all verses are called prayers. So a devotee should select some of these prayers for his recitation. And similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam also, there are hundreds of prayers. So this is a limb of devotional service. One must select these prayers and recite. And specifically, Srila Prabhupada also liked to recite this Brahma Samhita. Right? So these are also prayers. Okay. In Skanda Purana, it's mentioned, devotees whose tongues are decorated always with prayers to Lord Krishna are always given respect, even by great saintly persons and sages. And such devotees are actually worshipable by the demigods. So those whose tongues are decorated with prayers, they are respected by great saintly persons and sages, and they are worshipable by the demigods as well. It is stated that devotee who is always engaged in offering prayers to Lord is worshipable even by the demigods themselves. The pure devotees have nothing to ask from any demigod. Rather, the demigods are anxious to offer prayers to the pure devotees. Right? It's a very higher stage of understanding, which a normal person or a person who does not know about Krishna conscious processes, he will not be able to relate to this, of how exalted the position of a devotee is. So therefore it is mentioned that one should not tell about the glories of the holy name to one who does not know. One should not speak about the glories of a pure Vaishnava. Of course, the glories are recounted in his activities. But when it comes to something like this, then people may become offensive. So therefore, those kind of things, these kind of statements should be avoided actually. The glories of the pure devotees are elaborated, or we should explain in terms of their activities. Specifically when we're speaking about Srila Prabhupada in our case, we speak how many books he wrote, how many temples, how many lives he transformed, like this. So, but if we tell that a person, Srila Prabhupada, is worshipable even for the demigods, people would think it's offensive. It's not proper. So, those kind of things should be avoided. Should not speak. Okay. Yes. So again, if one who begins to chant the prayers is immediately relieved of reactions to sinful activities. Okay, we have few things to go through, but it's almost 9 now. So we'll just continue for 10 minutes and we'll try to complete this. Okay, because only when we complete 9th chapter today, we can do 10 and 11. But that itself is quite significant. And we have to push through also. So make it fast. This is regarding Prasharam. Atha Nevedya Svado. It's mentioned in Padma Purana, one who honors Prasad and regularly eats it, not exactly in front of the deity, Along with Charnamrit, the water offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, mixed with seeds of the tulsi tree, immediately can achieve the results of pious activities which are obtained through 10,000 performances of sacrificial rites. Okay, so this is a reference on Prashadam. So again, you can note it. It's from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 11, text 209. And if you see, for all these limbs, many of the references are only from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is actually an expansion of both the principles that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks to different devotees in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So all these principles of devotional service, pure devotional service, are there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Rupa Goswami has just assimilated them and presented them in a structured manner. So one who reads Chaitanya Charitamrita, implements in his life is perfect. So therefore, it's very good for engaging in pure devotional service, right? Okay, regarding Charnamrit is obtained in the morning while the Lord is being washed before dressing. Scented with perfumes and flowers, the water comes gliding down through his lotus feet and is collected and mixed with yogurt. In this way, Charnamrit not only becomes very tastefully flavored, but has tremendous spiritual value. In Padma Puran, even it's mentioned, even a person who has never been able to give in charity, who has never been able to perform a great sacrifice, never been able to study the Vedas, never been able to worship the Lord, or one who has never done any pious activity, will become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God if he simply drinks a Charnamrit, which is kept in the temple. In the temple, it's custom that the Charnamrit be kept in a big pot. The devotees who come to visit and offer respects to the deity take 3 drops of Charnamrit very submissively and feel themselves happy in transcendental bliss. Okay, so this is accepting Charnamrit is one of the limbs of devotional service. Atha dhupa saurabhyam means smelling the incense and flowers offered to the deity. So when the devotees smell the good fragrance of the incense which is offered to the deity, they become cured of the poisonous effects of material contamination, as much as one becomes cured of a snake bite by smelling the prescribed medicinal herbs. And Srila Prabhupada explains that there are some herbs which are found in the jungles. Simply by smelling that herb, the poisonous effects of snake bite is removed or one is relieved. So similarly, when a person comes to visit a temple and smells the incense offered to the deity, he is cured at that time from all his material contamination. This is similar to this Rathayatra provision. He is cured of all his material contamination. But then again, he commits different kinds of material activities and gets himself entangled. His consciousness is not fixed. Any devotee coming to the temple should always offer something to the deity: fruit, flowers, incense, etc. If one cannot offer anything in cash, something else must be offered. In India, the system is that ladies and gentlemen who come in the morning bring so many things. Even one morsel of rice or one morsel of flour can be offered. It's a regulative principle that one should not go to see a saintly person or the deity without any offering. The offering may be very humble or it may be priceless. Even a flower, a little fruit, a little water, whatever is possible must be offered. And when he comes to offer something to the deity, he is sure to smell the good fragrance of the incense. And then at once he will become cleansed of the poisonous effects of material existence. Correct? So one must offer something to the Lord when he comes to the temple. That's the injunction. And when he comes to the temple, automatically he smells the incense as well. If the smell of the garland which was offered to the deity in the temple enters into a person's nostrils, immediately his bondage to sinful activities becomes cleared. And even if one has no sinful activities, still, by smelling such remnants of flowers, one can advance from Mayavadi, impersonalist, to a devotee. And then the instances are mentioned. The 4 Kumaras, they smelled the remnants of flowers and tulsi, which was offered to the Lord, which was there in the lotus feet of the Lord, and they became devotees. One who has not washed off all reactions of sinful activities cannot become a pure devotee. A pure devotee has no more doubts about the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, and thus he engages himself in Krishna consciousness and devotional activities. Similarly, it's mentioned in Agastya Samhita, to purify the impurities of our nostrils, we should try to smell the remnants of flowers offered to Krishna in the temple. Correct? So when Aarti is going on, so when people come, then the flower which is offered to the Lord, it's offered to everybody. And that way, all their material contamination is removed. When the dhupa is offered, then everything. And when the deepa is offered, one's sinful reactions are completely burnt up, and he accepts that. So each of these processes, although it looks quite ritualistic, but when offered to the Lord, they attain this spiritual transcendental potency. And therefore, when it's accepted by devotees and even those who have not taken up the process of pure devotional service but have come to the temple out of piety in their life, they also get benefited. All the sinful actions are also mitigated. They are also considered to be as devotees only. Okay, one who, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that one who chants the holy name of the Lord even once, he should be considered a Vaishnava. And one who comes to the temple, inadvertently he chants the holy name, Hare Krishna, he says. Or when his kirtan is going on, then he chants the names of the Lord. So he should be considered as a devotee only. But that devotee is not a steady devotee. He comes and then he forgets about the temple probably for a week or till the next festival comes. So his devotional service is not permanent, it's not fixed. So although he did some devotional service, but it's not fixed devotional service. And therefore for him it will take several lifetimes. But his path towards pure devotional service had already started just by visiting the temple. Correct? So there is the understanding. Atha Sri Murte Sparshanam, touching the deity. Only a person who's initiated as a Vaishnava and is executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness has the right to touch the body of the deity. Srila Prabhupada speaks about Gandhi's speculation. He says, he made all the street sweepers and chandalas who are prohibited to come and touch and do deity seva, he allowed them by calling them Harijans or the associates of the Lord. So why are they not allowed? They are, due to the unclean habits, they are prohibited. But at the same time, they are given other facilities. So they may be elevated to the highest grade of devotional service by association with pure devotees. A man born in any family is not barred, but he must be cleansed. That cleansing process must be adopted. So it's not that one should not come to the temple, but he should purify himself, he should clean himself and then come. Gandhi wanted to make them clean simply by stamping them with a fictitious name, Harijana, children of God. And so there was a great tug of war between the temple owners and Gandhi's followers. But anyway, the present law is the law of all scripture, that if anyone is purified, he can enter into the temple. Actually, that is the position. Who can touch the deity? Only one who is properly initiated, who is properly following the rules and regulations, can enter and touch the deity. Not all. So if one is initiated, second initiated, but not following the rules and regulation, he also should not touch the deity. And one who is not initiated, second initiated in our sense, then he should definitely not touch the deity. So, if you remember, pure devotional service, when we were discussing in chapter 3 about eligibility of pure devotional service, we said, or we discussed, Rupa Goswami says that any person, irrespective of which caste he belongs to, which creed he belongs to, which family position is coming from, whether it's a dog eater, anybody will be purified. So they are not barred from coming to the temple. But they should have that understanding that when they're coming to the temple, they should be clean. Okay, they should be clean, they should have taken bath, they should not be engaged in any kind of sinful activities like this. So they should maintain themselves clean and then come. And then they can take advantage of these things. But in any case, unless they are initiated properly according to Pancharatrika Samskaras, they cannot be allowed near the deity. That is not done. Okay. Next is seeing the deity. That is item 41. So this is from Varaha Puran. A devotee says, my dear Vasundhara, any person who goes to Vrindavan and sees the deity of Govindadev is free from the courthouse of Yamaraj and is allowed to enter the highest planetary system in which reside the demigods. This means that even an ordinary person who goes to Vrindavan out of inquisitiveness and by chance sees the temple, especially that of Govindadev, even if he is not elevated to the spiritual kingdom, is still assured promotion to the higher planetary systems. This means that simply by visiting the deity of Govinda and Vrindavan, one becomes highly elevated in pious life. He just comes and sees and does not engage in any of the other activities about hearing the names of the Lord, partaking of Prasharam or any other activity that goes on in the temple. He just comes, sees the deity and goes, still he gets tremendous benefit. He becomes very pious. Okay. So actually Srila Jiva Goswami, he comments that Rupa Goswami has specifically mentioned Govindadev because Rupa Goswami is more attracted to the Govindaji deity, right? In Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami established the deity of Radha Govinda in Govindadev temple. So therefore, because he is attracted to Govindadev, therefore he has given this as the verse. Fine. Finally, it's observing Arati and celebrations of the Lord. Aratrika Darshanam. In Skanda Puran, it's mentioned that if someone sees the face of the Lord while Arati is going on, he can be relieved of all sinful reactions coming from many, many thousands and millions of years past. He's even excused from the killing of a Brahmana or similar prohibited activities. As we've already explained, these are different ceremonies. There are different ceremonies to be observed, such as birthday of Krishna, birthday of Lord Ramchandra, birthday of prominent Vaishnavas, the ceremony of Jhulan Yatra or Dola Yatra. In all these festivals, the Lord is seated on a car and the car moves through different streets of the city so that people may take advantage of visiting the Lord and seeing his Arati also. So that's why when Janmashtami festival happens, or when we were doing festivals, we have Arati every half an hour. It's not that only the 5 or 6 Artis that happen in the temple. Every half an hour we have an Arati because it has tremendous benefit. All the people who come, they can take benefit from this Arati during festival times. In Bhavishya Purana it's mentioned, in such a ceremony, even if a Chandala, simply out of curiosity, sees the Lord on the cart, he becomes counted as one of the associates of Vishnu. Right? We discussed this. In Agni Purana it is stated, any person who in gladness sees the worship of the deity in the temple will obtain the results of Kriya Yoga, which are described in the Pancharatra scripture. Srila Prabhupada explains, Kriya Yoga is a system of practice, much like practical devotional service. But it is especially meant for the mystic yogis. In other words, by this gradual process, the mystic yogis are eventually elevated to the devotional service of the Lord. So that's what Kriya Yoga means. Okay, so this ends chapter 9. So we have discussed these different things about blasphemy, tulsi beads, tilak beads. All these are different limbs of devotional service. And if we see, some of them are activities that we should do, and some of this is the attitude that we should have when we perform these activities. And then there are rules and regulations also mentioned for some of these, for many of these activities. So these are the totally 22 limbs, actually 23, which we saw today. And these limbs, most of it we are already following. But if you see, the attitude is also, that is what we should learn from this. When one comes to the temple, we should understand that this is what is mentioned in Nectar of Devotion. This is how one should engage a person in devotional service. So like that. This is what we learn actually. So most of it was reading today, but then it's good because we have understood different aspects of the different angas of devotion service. So tomorrow we will do both chapter 10 and 11. So further aspects of devotion service are mentioned. So we will be able to complete till 53 angas. Today we have completed till 42. So start from 43 and do till 53 tomorrow. And the rest, 12, 13 and 14, will speak about the final 11. That is from 54 to 64. And then 15, 16 will speak about Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, 17, 18 about Bhava Bhakti, and 19 about Prema Bhakti. And we'll be able to complete that next week. Okay, so stop. Any questions you have on what we discussed today? Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Without beats. Nam Smaran is that something which is done on the mind. So, yeah, it's done without beats. That's the understanding. That Nam Smaran is done without beats. Yeah. But when we are chanting, then we should chant softly. We should be able to hear what we are chanting. Okay, so stop. Okay, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai, Gaur Premanand.